Monday, November 8th can't come soon enough for Niagara Falls Mayor Jim Diodati. The U.S. border will finally be open to Canadian citizens. Jim, Canadian border opened up about a month ago to Americans coming over, but you've said all along we need both of these borders open. We need to be able to travel both ways. Why was that important to you?
Well, we knew exactly what was going to happen. The Americans have not come back. You know, when we were kids, Mike, we would always play a game. We'd see how many different plates from different states and provinces we could find. Nobody plays that game anymore. I mean, you might get a handful of New York State. They're not coming back. Because of the PCR testing, it's too much work and it's too much money and too much uncertainty. It's easier not to come here. So they'll spend their money in their own country. And it's really unfortunate. So we've been petitioning the government. If you're fully vaccinated, and we know vaccines work, then let's open it up. If you need to do rapid testing, get rid of this cumbersome PCR test. And we want to make sure that it goes both ways. I mean, I speak regularly with Congressman Higgins, with Senate Majority Chuck Schumer, Leader Chuck Schumer, and we talk exactly about this topic. And they say, we don't understand. We're talking to your ambassador. What is the problem? Nobody in Europe is doing this. Why are you doing this? You've got some of the highest vaccination rates in the world. And yet you're still, and I said, well, I guess the attitude is that nothing's 100%. And they always say, what's 100%? Other than death and taxes, nothing's 100%. Let's be reasonable. So that's what we're asking.
Well, let's go back to what you say, that the Americans just haven't been showing up. What have you heard from the business people in Niagara Falls?
Well, they've been devastated. It's been a year and a half of pure hell for these people. And now they're thinking, please, make some, we've done everything right. We're doing contact tracing, we're distancing, we're sanitizing, we're vaccinated. What more do you want from us? What people need to understand, 25% of the visitation to Niagara Falls is American, yet it represents 50% of the revenue, 50. So imagine, in the best of times, it's not easy to be successful running your own business. We'll cut off half your revenue and then try to be successful. We've increased expenses, we've pared back capacities, we've done everything to hurt a business. Now it's time to help the business. Let's be reasonable and let's allow the borders back to free flow. And on top of that, Mike, you know, we see it as one city divided by a border. A lot of people don't realize it'd be like cutting half of your city off and saying, you can't go there anymore, you can't visit your relatives, you can't shop at your favorite store anymore, you can't see your friends. We're saying, let's treat it as it's always been treated for hundreds of years, as one big city divided by a border that you can actually cross.
Council voted on a motion to send a letter to the federal government about these tests. What was actually in that motion?
So it was a resolution and it went through the facts, and all border city mayors are doing the same thing, whether it's Windsor, Fort Erie, Sarnia, Gananoque, Preston, and so on. We're all doing the exact same thing. We're asking the federal government to be reasonable. We're saying if you're fully vaccinated and we can prove it, allow us to go back and forth across the border. In worst case...
Is that mostly for same-day trips, or would you put a time limit on that?
No, we're just saying if you cross land crossings, to allow that to happen. Because most people that come to Niagara Falls come by rubber tire. It means they drive here. And most people make a game day decision whether they're going to come or if they're not going to come. And unfortunately, when you add $1,000 to a trip, because that's ballpark what it is for a family, they say it's not worth it. You know, they want their dollars to go, they'd rather spend more money on nicer meals or more attractions or nicer amenities. So what we're saying is, if we can drop that if they're fully vaccinated, it's a reasonable approach, especially, I mean, I looked the other day, we had 4 cases in the region of almost 500,000 people. We're doing a great job. Everybody's done their thing. And you know the other thing, Mike? Niagara Falls gets the lion's share of tourists in Canada, certainly here in Niagara, and yet you'd think maybe our numbers per capita would be higher than the rest, and it's not. We're average. So it tells us what we've been doing works. In the tourism industry, they've got safetoplay.ca, safetostay.ca, where they go above and beyond provincial protocols. We're all doing the right thing, and now we're saying, you know, we bent your way, now bend our way. One hand washes the other. Please help us to be successful. Help us not to go under.
What the rules look like for Monday, or the fact that we can cross over to the United States, show our passport. We may or may not be required to show our vaccine passport at that time. I've heard it's going to be a random choice of who does that. Mm-hmm. But on the way back, we have to show the results of a PCR test within 72 hours. So my question to you is, if I've been tested here, does that test stand as my proof that I've been tested in 72 hours?
Yes, it does. And that's what a lot of people are doing. They're going to get their test. So let's say you want to go to a Bills game, or you want to go shopping at the Galleria, or you want to visit some family or friends in Buffalo or anywhere in Western New York. You get your test here. It's good for 3 days. So you go over, you can even stay overnight and then come back. So a lot of people want to do that for American Thanksgiving, which is the #1 shopping day, Black Friday, in their entire year, even more than Christmas. So a lot of people have intentions of doing that, or going to Erie to go shopping where there's no taxes, no sales taxes. So that's what people are going to do. A lot of them are going to get their test here, and then they'll be good to come back. It's a little bit of uncertainty on the other side. And the other challenge, I have a personal situation where I know someone that was in the US, had their PCR test, and they say usually it's 2 to 5 days to get it back. Usually it takes 2 days. You can get fast ones that happen within 1 day, but sometimes they don't come in time. And if they don't have enough volume, they don't. And I know someone that took 5 days. So that meant it was not good for crossing the border. They came to the border, and the border said, well, $6,000 fine each without having it. So it's a real dilemma, and these stories travel far and wide. So we're saying we need to be reasonable. We don't need to treat them like they're criminals. If they're fully vaccinated, they've been following the rules, they're reasonably trying to come with a proof that they're negative. There's a lot of frustration stories that I can tell you, Mike. So what we're saying is, let's be reasonable. Let's have a clear communication. Let's remove any over-the-top encumbrances. If you're fully vaccinated, you've done the right thing. Come on, let's give incentive to those to get vaccinated to say you'll be able to cross that border, just as the Americans will be able to do.
Border agencies are saying expect some long delays at the borders starting on Monday. My question again is, where would this PCR test take place when I'm coming back into Canada?
Well, that's another great question. So you can go to any pharmacy. You can go to CVS. You can go to Walgreens. The pharmacies in Niagara Falls, New York will do them. There's a range of costs. So especially as a Canadian going there. Now they do have something right now. If you're a New York State resident, they'll give you a free test, but it's not been enough to incentivize them to come over here. It's just too much work. They can't be bothered. And you know what it's like. People are busy with life. Now you got to go get a test. You got to download the results, bring them with you. Maybe you won't get allowed in. They're like, you know what? I'm not going to bother. So that's what they can do. We can do the same thing. You can book a test and pay for it. And it could be around $150 as an average price, American, per person. And you hope you get your results done in time so that you can present them when you get back to the border. That's why a lot of people are saying, you know what, it's too much hassle, not really worth it. And you know, people say, well, it's great, at least we get staycations. Canadians keep their money here. And yeah, that's one good part of it, but we're not getting any of the American visitation, international visitation, because you know, I was speaking with some people that were traveling throughout Europe and Germany and Italy, and they said, nobody there is doing PCRs, nobody. And he said their vaccination rates are nowhere near what we have here. He said, I went over there, I had all my documentation, nobody wanted to see it.
Right.
They're beyond this, they're over it. But we're still beating the drum as if there's an imminent threat right now. And you know, I mean, we've got to be, of course, responsible, but let's be reasonable.
Jim, thanks for joining us today. Let's agree that the fact that this border is reopening for both Canada and the US, it's a good thing. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.